Pastoral Epistles. 2 Timothy chapter 3 this week. Alright. Okay, so we have verse 1, chapter 3. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. Verse 1, the last days probably include the entire church age, extending from Pentecost until the present time. Although these conditions may escalate and proliferate in the end time, they did exist in Timothy's day, for Paul instructed him from such turn away. We know this too also just through the fact that we can see just by action, demonstration, and word throughout that the apostles actually literally believed we are in the end times. You know, the Lord could come back any day now. Right. And, you know, Paul, I know, looked for the Lord literally day after day after day, because he's like, who knows how long he'll live. I'm sure they never really imagined it would go for 2,000 years, but, you know, you look at even at Roman times back then, some of the things that the Lord even spoke of that would exist in the last days actually existed even then.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they were able to pinpoint even certain events or things, mindsets and different things like that even then. So now fast forward 2,000 years and it's like times, yeah, so.
That's true. I remember thinking that the year 2000 was going to be it.
Yeah.
That was it.
The
In 1988. Yeah. Well,
I remember that. The
88 reasons why Jesus is going to come back in 1988.
Yeah. It's.
And then the sequel, 89 reasons why he's going to come back in 89.
Oh man, I know. It's brutal. I'll have to get into that too. I've got a thing where I have to write out in note form studies on Revelation, where a lot of what's already been put out there has already happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's occurred already.
Oh yeah.
And the seals and things, and it's like, whoa. I mean, because you start to really count down the seals, and you're thinking, we only have like a couple left in this area, and all this already happened, and this is in existence now, and
right.
You start to really put it together, and you're like, there's not much left that really needs to happen, kind of. You know, it's probably process of elimination. You look at what you're left with, and you're like, oh boy. It's like that's kind of shocking in that respect.
I have probably have one of my things at home. I have a magazine that has a pullout that goes through all the bowls and the seals, all the judgment, and lays it out.
Right. And
it has like a pictorial chart showing everything, so you can see. It'd be a good tool for you.
Well, the other thing too is, not without getting off too much on topic, but basically where in Revelation, I have to get all the scriptures pulled together, but where it speaks of 1/3 of mankind dying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it never said over a period of time. It more or less made it really sound like, in one time, 1/3 of mankind will literally die.
Right.
So right away, you're letting yourself to believe, well, it's a catastrophic event that would happen. You know, and you could think of a number of things. Nuclear reactor? No, not really. You know, I mean, it has to be much bigger. You know, than we saw like a Chernobyl or something like that. Although Chernobyl is also, I think, actually discussed in Revelation, but you start thinking more along the lines of like thermonuclear warfare.
Right.
You know, where they're literally got a couple countries or whatever who literally just start hitting buttons and annihilating 30% of the population off the face of the earth, and before it cools off, and you're left with whatever's there, and
right.
That's what I think is honestly going to happen. But you know, who can say? But I think we're at that point already.
Don't worry, as long as Obama's around, we won't fire a missile no matter what Russia does.
Well, I know we don't have to worry about North Korea because they're still powering their rockets with Mentos and Coke. We're safe there. That one we can kind of go off. We're good there.
Unless they open a giant Mentos factory.
Iran's still using vinegar and baking soda, but they're getting closer.
Right.
So.
North Korea announces they are going to open their own 15,000 Mentos factories.
Yeah.
Need to worry.
Yeah, he's throwing candy and bottles of Coke out and going, do this! Fire the rocket! So,
That's the world's largest pack of
he
Mentos.
saw a YouTube video and went, not bad idea. That might work, get on that!
Dennis Rodman, next time you come,
That'll
bring
come
us Mentos.
through the UN ban, get that. They'll never think of it.
Steven Seagal goes to Russia.
Oh, man. Alright, so anyway, yeah, one of those moods.
Yeah.
Perilous is chalepos, literally hard times. And that is in the book, okay. When it will be difficult to maintain one's own spiritual equilibrium as well as be successful in persuading others to submit themselves to God. Particular pressures will be evident in the end times. Spiritual drowsiness is always a possibility in the midnight hour. Subtle dangers will present themselves to Christians just before the coming of the Lord. So we must be aware, alert, and knowledgeable of the wiles of the devil. Now in verse 2 we see, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. Verse 3, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. 4, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure, more than lovers of God. Verse 5, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. Okay, so in verse 2 we see men is from the generic word anthropos, meaning mankind, encompassing the whole race, both male and female. Okay, just in case anybody wanted to try to exclude themselves, they're actually included. I don't even care if they try to change genders; they are still included.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds nowadays, but. Verses 2 through 4 list 18 characteristics of people in the end time alone. Okay, there's 18 characteristics listed. Lovers of their own selves, philautos, lover of self. The rise of the cult of self-love in our day has been phenomenal. I mean, everywhere you go, see is me, I am.
Selfie.
Yeah, selfies, there's a good one for you right there. Yeah, I mean, you could just go on and on and on. I mean, you can even see, I saw a thing where it was progressive, they had magazines in print, and it showed over a period of like 60 years of magazines, right? And you had stuff like Time, Life, and then it started honing in to, I forget what magazine it was now. There was another one that had like Us, and then Me, and it kept, and you can see how the progressional form kept going and focusing more and more and more to look at them just me, all about me, you know. Magazine is just about me, for me, and it's like, yeah, it's, you can see it definitely in today's world. It is the heart of the New Age beliefs as well as the New Thought proponents. Unitarian Universalists, and many Eastern religious sects. And we hear much of like self-confidence and self-fulfillment, self-actualization, self-motivation, and many other compound ideas beginning with self. Self is on the throne in many hearts. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. People have become introspective in search of truth, thinking that they can discover divinity there. We look around constantly, and all we see is, I mean, how many, you can go anywhere, pick up just about any publication nowadays, and see some kind of a self-help being advertised, promoted, sold, guest speaker, event. I mean, you go on and on. It's all about you, and I can help you, and you have to do this, and it's all about you, and you can only help yourself if you... Right, it just goes on and on, yeah, and it's like, holy cow. I mean, we even see it pushed in the, a lot of your evangelicals.
Joel!
Yeah, I don't want to say his name, but...
Oh, that's like...
It's all about you today. How can you be? It's like, I don't know, don't care.
God loves you so much that He wants you to be Him.
And you can be successful. Name it and claim it for you. Today's your day. How about today's the Lord's day?
Exactly.
Just
So-
believe 600,000.
Just a mere pittance. It's jet fuel for the week. No
Yeah,
problem.
seriously.
Just stay here, yeah.
Seriously. Oh well, there goes my coffee money for this week.
Yeah, wow. Anyway, so people become very introspective and searching of truth, thinking that they can discover divinity there. Now, the idea that men are gods but just haven't recognized it yet pervades our world entirely. Okay, pantheism is again flowering in this present age. Covetous, phileo, from phileo to love. Okay, and arduous, silver. Thus, lover of money. Okay, so lovers of money. Money or the means of exchange is not sinful in and of itself, all right? But loving it is still the root of all evil. Loving it will pervert our thinking. Our power of reason will fail us. Temptation will overcome us. Jesus said, "You cannot serve God and mammon." For this reason, the Bible stresses the importance of contentment. God hated covetousness from the beginning and included its condemnation in the Ten Commandments. If you're constantly looking at things and other people's things and wishing those things were yours and always trying to beat out the Joneses or whatever, the very first thing you need usually to do that is money.
Right.
You know, money makes that happen. You hear the term in the business world a lot is money opens doors. You know, it's true. And, I mean, they are right. It's correct when they say that. If you have enough money, you can open a lot of doors. You know, but some of those doors should have stayed shut.
Right.
And it should never have been opened in the first place. We also see boasters, imposters, braggarts, pretenders. Such persons often profess the faith but do not have fruit to back up their profession. We see proud people, to show above. Many translations render this word as haughty. Okay, haughty when it means proud. Such a person thinks more of himself than is merited, particularly thinking he is above others. Some people you can peg like that very easily. Okay, some people you can't. Some people, I've seen the, how do I say this? The plausible deniability haughty person. I guess is the best way to put it. They are haughty. They go right to the edge to the point where they almost act like they have humility, but it's more haughty than anything. Like they have in mind, I'm really better than most people, but I don't. It's okay. You don't have to say anything.
Right.
It's like one of those basically, and you're like, really? A little harder to spot, but still there.
C.S. Lewis had a good example of that. He was talking about how a lady went to, basically she would go to a restaurant. He framed it as a form of gluttony, but not because she ate so much. She would go to a restaurant, they would bring out the food, and she would send it back. Oh, that's too much. Take a quarter of that off the plate. Take a quarter of that. Oh, I can't eat all that. Oh, I don't eat that much. Making a show of it by, yeah.
Exactly. You know, it's like they really are, but they'll try and play it down.
Right.
It's like, oh, really? You know, like they come in to clap it. Oh, really? It's okay. You don't have to stand and clap. It's okay. Okay, a little more. It wasn't quite loud enough. You know.
Exactly.
I got more at the last place. Come on, seriously. So yeah, we do see a lot of that. Now God puts this in at the top of the list of things He hates. It's a threshold to many other transgressions. Obviously, because you just place yourself at the top of the list, so you're prone to be more acute to the other things like that. Blasphemers would also come out of this as well in a way. Evil speaker, slander, reviler, Blasphemy in the sense of a believer persistently reviling, slandering, and rejecting the Holy Spirit is unpardonable because he cuts himself off from the only means God has to deal with him. Okay? But blasphemy committed by an unbeliever in ignorance can be forgiven. Okay, so you can see a distinct difference between the two. Mm-hmm. One is acutely aware of their walk with God, or at least that they had a walk, and cut themselves off to the point where God cannot even reach them now.
Right.
They've totally just seared their conscience in a way where he can't even penetrate them anymore.
Right.
Okay, so that's where that goes. Whereas the unbeliever has not had that experience yet. God's still trying to work with them, still trying to call them, still trying to, like, hey, here I am, and he just hasn't recognized God for who God really is yet. But he's on a progression, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Disobedient to parents, rejecting parental authority. This sin defines a large segment of the current present generation. Honoring one's mother and father is the first commandment with promise and was enjoined by Paul. If that statute alone was enforced today, an entire generation would probably disappear from the earth. Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
It's not hard to walk down the street, and all you have to do is go, oh yeah, that one, stone him, stone her. It's like, did you just hear why she talked to her? Drag around that Walmart parking lot, stone her to death. Grab a brick, do it. I'm kidding around too, but yeah, you can see it nowadays a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm shocked when I hear it, and I'm just like blown away, thinking, "Whoa, they did just speak to them like that?" And I'm like, well, I'm really at this point going, "Okay, your turn." Like, you're waiting for the parent to just lay into them,
And they don't.
And they don't. Yeah, you're right. It's like they just ignore it, or they dismiss it in some way. Like, don't you ever talk about that again?
Mm-hmm.
That's it? Wow, that's huge repercussion there. Yeah, I guarantee they will. Trust me.
There's some state legislature that passed a law, well, they were trying to pass a law that actually outlined what spanking was to make sure it was legal, so they couldn't be charged with child abuse. But they were like, hit on the bottom, no bruises, no this, can be with the hand or use some other object. It doesn't. Yeah. I was like, can't say it's a horrible idea given the way people fly off the handle.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, I can understand what
I can see it both ways.
At. Yeah. And
I can see there shouldn't be the need, but then I can also see that people overreact. So this is actually going to protect a parent that does spank.
Yeah.
So, who disciplines correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally.
That's sad that it's come to that, though.
It's sad, but it's also kind of good that
Yeah.
instead of them going the other way, you can't even
Right.
blink hard at a
Exactly.
child.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're having that discussion. At least.
Right.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, because I watched a news report. I don't know, this morning or yesterday morning, somewhat, maybe yesterday morning. The woman was on the train in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
She's headed to work. It's 7:30 in the morning, and a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, something like that. Literally at 7:30 in the morning, who should have been going to school, mind you, who had backpacks on them, okay, because they had the surveillance footage. Literally swiped the phone, an iPhone, right out of a woman's hand that was sitting there on the bench going to work, right before the doors closed, and took off out the door, stole her phone, and ran away with it.
Right.
And then they were interviewing a lady who says, I just don't know what this rule is coming to. A 10-year-old and a 12-year-old or whatever. And it's like, well, actually, I could tell you do you really want to hear why? It's like, it's not hard to figure out.
Right.
And people have made it like this.
Yeah.
I mean, you threw God out of school. You drove people away from God. You outlawed God altogether. You've taken away family values. You've demeaned every possible way there is to, God and family. How much more time you have? Yeah. You've destroyed it.
Yep.
It's all your own making.
Yep.
And then they would sit there and wonder, what's gotten into kids? It's not what's gotten into kids, it's what you haven't put into the kids
Right.
that now they're acting like that.
Exactly.
You know, there's no respect. Unthankful or ungrateful. Who can enjoy the highest living standard the world has ever known without being thankful? Who can sit down and eat his meal and never give a thought to the ultimate provider? Only selfish brutes who have no sense of appreciation for life or breath. I mean, the very food we eat. I was going to say, you didn't build that. But you didn't grow that. Okay. The house you live in, you didn't build that. There you go. The car you drive, you didn't make that either. You know, the gas that you put in to drive it, you didn't make that. You know, we have all these things available readily that we didn't have to work for as far as actually making ourselves.
Right.
Clothes, furniture, you know, cabinets, all the things you enjoy. You know, that was all created.
Right.
You bought it. Yes, you work somewhere. Yes, you produce something in a product or a service. But the bottom line is, you're not like they were 500 years ago,
Right.
200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, where they all had to make their own clothes, farm their own food, make their own houses, drive their own cattle. I mean, you know, all that. We don't do that these days.
Right.
We don't have to. We're very blessed. There are countries where you still have to do that, and we don't either, though.
Mm-hmm.
But to sit there and to see people totally unthankful for what little or what a lot they have, one or the other, regardless. You still have clothes on. You still eat every day. You still have a house or a roof over your head of some type. You know, most people do.
Right.
How can you not be thankful?
Right.
You know, seriously. I mean, if you get sick or injured, you're going to the hospital. You know they'll probably treat you more than likely. At least by law they're supposed to. But,
Thanks to Obama.
Because Obama cares.
yeah.
That's why more people lost their insurance than have it now.
And those who had it are paying more for it.
Right.
Yeah, I know I am. Verse 3, without natural affection, without normal human love. Such a person does not care for those of his own household, but he may direct base affections to a friend, quite often someone of the same sex. Perversion in one area of life can lead to perversion in other areas. The same word appears in Romans 1:31 in the discussion on sexual perversion and reprobation. Okay, truce breakers, irreconcilable, implacable, merciless. These people refuse to enter into a treaty or agreement, and if they did, would be suspect concerning its neglect. Okay. False accusers. The word usually used for the devil is diabolos, and this is false accusers, which we see in Job,
Right.
and other areas of the Bible where Satan is accusing the brethren or the elect constantly before God. Okay, the saints. A slanderer. This kind of person will lie about a colleague in order to get his job, or slander another church member and make himself look a little better in the eyes of the pastor, or even tell a falsehood about a competitor in order to win a contract. Okay. Incontinent, without power over oneself, basically have no control, particularly relating to sensual lusts. Okay. It means without strength, indicating a person who is easily led into degrading sins. Such a person is easily persuaded or deceived into committing evil. Needless murders and violent sex crimes are perpetrated by incontinent persons. So these are your serial murderers, your sadomasochists, your low of the low. I mean, your child molesters. I mean, you name it. And unfortunately, we do hear about a lot of that these days. A lot. I mean, to the point where we've pretty much tuned it out in some respect, which is sad, but only shows that there's such a level of it in existence that that's what we're doing, whether we realize it or not, voluntary or involuntary. Yeah. All right, fierce, untamed, or savage. It is possible that a person could be both incontinent and fierce at the same time. Incontinently indulging himself and being inhumane to others. Again, that goes with your sadomasochists, your serial murderers, your torturers, people. There's a lot of stuff going on. Despisers of those that are good, haters of good. Such people are more likely to appreciate a public criminal, a sex offender, or a thrice married woman than a wholesome, honest, hardworking person. Especially if the shady character is a celebrity. Our society tends to make heroes out of the least of the deserving persons. We see that all the time now. It's like the more perverse or evil or base or wicked they are, it's like, oh, he's so cool. No, he's not. Or she, or you see women too a lot. But constantly, yeah, you see it in the media all the time where they're praising people for, or laughing about it. Oh, isn't he just one of the, no. Great role model. Yeah. I could think of a bunch of them. Off the top of my head. The worst of the worst, man. The dregs of society to become role models. Verse 4. Traitors, a betrayer, one who may make a promise or a covenant but will go back on his word if it seems to serve his own interests. The word is used of Judas Iscariot in Luke 6:16. Heady, falling forward or headlong. It came to mean hasty or rash, and it can describe someone who is reckless, bent on following a precipitous path to destruction. These are people who, for like an example, hot-headed or short fused. They just kind of fly off and just run amok, and they just start putting things into motion, and later you're looking at the same mess and they're asking for help. And you're going, "Were you nuts? Like, why would you do that?" You know?
Right.
You see that even more today, where this could be even given to somebody, for example, a heady person with like extremes even too, where domestic violence, and they just fly off the handle, and next thing you know, they're like shooting the household up, you know, and then themselves, or you know, going off and just all kinds of crazy stuff.
Okay, right.
But to give you some, those are the most extreme examples, but you know, not to say they couldn't leave there eventually one day either if they don't get a handle on it.
Or like Obamacare, still going with that.
High-minded.
Again.
Swollen with pride. Ooh. To raise a smoke, wrap in a mist. A more modern term is to put on airs. This person is conceited. We see a lot of people like that these days.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people. I mean, it's used to be a joke where it was like, boys' heads so big you can't fit through the door. Problem is, there's a whole crowd of them that are hitting the door right now, banging into one another. None of them can get in through the door. Lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Okay, given over to pleasure specifies those persons who follow the philosophy of eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Sounds like the Vikings. They say in effect, so what if God is not pleased with our lifestyle? We would rather please ourselves than God. The early Romans' cry was, give us bread and the circus. Crazy. First on their list was to eat to their fill, then be entertained. Such a gluttonous, self-serving attitude marked the civilization for extinction. More modern terms for this philosophy are hedonism and existentialism. Okay, we see a lot of that prevalent now today. It's kind of scary reading through all these, honestly, because every one you read, you're like, wow, I see this everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even isolated. It's like a raging forest fire. And
Right.
You know, it's like on fire. And getting worse day by day. There's no calming or regression of like, oh, okay, it's kind of receding. No. Another last day sign is having a form but not the power of godliness. Outward semblance is not the same as inward reality. A person may appear to be religious, but his faith does not motivate him to be spiritually victorious. of what value is it? Sin and unbelief inside create an impotent emptiness. Churches may dot the landscape, but if they deny the power of God to save miraculously and deliver supernaturally, they are sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal, whited sepulchres full of dead men's bones. So we are to avoid those persons or churches. We are not to have fellowship with them or aid them in their endeavors. Okay? We can use our time more efficiently by focusing on unevangelized sinners or developing committed Christians than by continuing to have fellowship with carnal apostates. Now verse 6, false religion. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with divers lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds reprobate concerning the faith. But they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall manifest unto all men, as theirs also was. Okay. So verse 6, we see of this sort. This indicates that from among the persons just named are those who creep, enter on the sly, worm in, to ply their deception. The idea is that by trickery and false pretenses, they find a way to get into homes and exercise influence. Even through a TV.
Right.
Seriously, it's like, gotta be careful, even through a radio or a TV, you know, any way they can. Internet, whatever, you know, I mean, whatever's out there that they can use. Such subterfuge results in captivating and subjugating the minds of certain susceptible women. West commented, one of the great virtues of womanhood, namely that of trusting another, is turned into a weakness by Satan here. Eve was deceived. Adam sinned with his eyes wide open.
Right.
Okay. Many cults and sects prey on women, especially single women. Christian women must be discerning in such matters so that they are not always taken advantage of. These sins and lusts are not necessarily the sexual variety. Divers indicates that the lusts are very variegated. The implication is that their worldly wants and desires are easily exploited. Okay. And women are just so easily, not anything against women, but you don't see a guy chasing after, well, these days anyway, we back that up, because normal guys, I'll put it that way. A guy under normal circumstances who's a normal guy, who is a guy, through and through, you don't see them run around chasing after the latest fashions, and the latest furniture, and the latest drapes, and the latest stuff, you know, makeup, and whatever. True, you see guys that have electric power tools, maybe electronics, things like that, but it's never quite the way like a woman. Women are like into accentuating themselves, right, and just constantly trying to build themselves up in a way, you know, whether it be through style or their home, you know, or something to that effect anyway. And it just leads to other things, you know, so. But you don't see normal guys doing that.
Hey, if Brother Antoine's into it, I'm not gonna
That'll be. He's got the newest window photo. Please notice. Just saying.
You don't see the gossiping going on with normal guys. Okay? Yeah, like things that, there's just guy stuff that just, guys don't care, you know, they're like, whatever, you know. They couldn't be bothered with it, you know.
Right.
So it's not as much of an opening, you know, as it would be for like a woman in a way. And I've seen women just very susceptible to certain things like that. But when you start getting into those things, it opens up more areas and more doors and troubles, and yeah. Nothing against women.
Right.
To a degree, it can be good.
Yeah.
If it's kept in check, you know, just like with guy stuff, you know, you can go overboard and get into certain things that, you know, you're like, dude, why'd you spend all that money? What were you thinking? You know? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Looked really good at the time, but they're right. I might only use it once or twice. I have no idea, but it looks good in the garage, you know. no, I can't ride that, but look good. In verse 7, we see such women are ever learning new doctrines, ideas, and theories, but the false teachers never lead them to the knowledge of the truth.
Wow.
Okay. This refers to the women led astray. Okay. One of the strange phenomena of our day is a great number of women going to all kinds of Bible studies and religious meetings who seem to gravitate towards strange doctrines and unorthodox ideas. They never come for the truth that faith once delivered unto the saints in old-fashioned fundamentals of the Bible. That's weird. It's the newest and latest craze, or idea, or philosophy, or something to that effect. And it falls in line, again, with trends and gossiping. And, so it's, you can see where it's a kind of it kind of intertwines itself, and they really have to be careful on guard as to how they present not just themselves, but how they receive things also. There's something out there that could really kind of harm you, or you think it's like, I don't feel too good about this, it's not kosher. Get away from it. Verse 8, the prototypes of modern deceivers existed in ancient times as well. Jannes and Jambres are apparently the Egyptian magicians who opposed Moses in Exodus. Now, according to Numenius, they were sacred scribes, a lower order of priests in Egypt who were skilled in magic. Some interpret the name Jannes and from the Ethiopian language as trickster, and Jambres as juggler. As these magicians resisted Moses in copying his miracles, the false teachers of the end time may also use lying wonders, which is true. Satan can always offer you a counterfeit, a copy or replica of the original. Only God's original. All Satan has to offer is a copy, replica, or counterfeit of the same thing that God just did.
An unreasonable facsimile.
Right. He can't do anything in and of himself as far as creating something new and original.
Right.
It can only be derived as something that God has already done or put into motion. So we will see that in the end times. You'll see with the Antichrist and the false prophet. The false prophet will do all kinds of stuff, these miracles and everything else. But it's nothing going to be original that hasn't already been done.
Right.
It's like, really? That's all you have, huh? It's the best you can do. Wow, okay. People whose minds are corrupted will resist the truth, despising the true faith because of its demands on their character. They are actually reprobate concerning the faith. Now in verse 9, such people will eventually come to an end of their effectiveness because their insane folly will become increasingly evident. The church should pray for discernment, wisdom, and understanding to defeat the purveyors of doctrinal error. Verse 10, but thou hast fully known my doctrine, manner of life, purpose, faith, long-suffering, charity, patience. Persecutions, afflictions, which came unto me at Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra, what persecutions I endured, but out of them all the Lord delivered me. Yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Wow. Fully known in verse 10 is also translated in Luke 1 and 3 as a perfect understanding. Okay, so fully known, perfect understanding. Paul compared the formerly mentioned individuals with himself, not to boast, but to offer a contrast to one who knew his life well. So he basically used his life as like a benchmark. This is the example or the line that I'm setting. And by this line or this benchmark that I'm setting on my life, use that as a comparative form to these others. And if they don't line up, they should. Okay. The apostle invited scrutiny of any area of his life. Faithfulness includes soundness in doctrine, a blameless lifestyle, a set resolution to fulfill his role in ministry, unwavering faith, patience, selfless love, and endurance. Verse 11, such an armory of spiritual weapons virtually guarantees consistent personal victory, even in the face of persecutions and afflictions. Paul enumerated 3 of the places where he endured especially severe persecutions. Timothy was well aware of them since he was from Lystra, and Jews from Antioch and Iconium had stirred up the persecution there. Now in verse 12 we see all Christians must resolve to endure suffering for the name of the Lord. God does not allow it into our lives to cause us to fail or to fall, but to strengthen us. It is the destiny of all that will live godly. Not all will suffer as Paul did. Most today will never feel the lash of the cat o' nine tails or the impact of stones or be dragged into court to face charges connected with being a Christian. However, the court thing is probably on the horizon. It's, I'm sure, I've seen and heard of more and more, unfortunately, cases of that. And it's usually under the guise of hate speech or something to that effect.
Wonder what's going to happen with Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of things on the horizon that are just...
See how that's decided.
That's actually, the argument too, the legal precedence on that. The government's having a hard time proving their case. Because basically it stands on the fundamental of if a business, okay, cannot impose...
If a business can't practice the owner's religious values throughout,
Well,
is that what you're...
Well, almost where if a business is required to treat an individual fairly based on their, say, their racial orientation or something to that effect, like in other words, I'm required by law, okay, that I have to, as a business, I have to treat you fairly, okay, granted, but also, that person has to treat the business in the same respect. It's a give and take. So if I can't impose, or if I can't have things imposed on me that I would like, what they're trying to say basically is the mandate for the abortion and all that. I can't impose, I have to be respectful of the religions of the people working for me. Right? And they have to also be respectful of the company's standpoint as a religious point. So why would it be any different when it comes into race or supposed sexual orientation and all these things that they're shoving down? So why would the abortion mandate be the only thing on the table that would be treated differently than all of those aspects? You can't disinclude that or preclude that from any of the other areas. And that's basically what their business is saying. You can't have all of it and then just say, but not that. So it has to be fair, all or nothing. You can't have both. And the government's trying to have both. In their argument, and it's not working well. And even the couple of the justices were taken aback even by some of the remarks of the defending attorney for the government. They're like, what? Whoa, are we hearing you clearly on this? And they're even asking, could you please restate that for the record? Am I understanding correctly when you say, and they say yes, and he's like, okay. You're going to have a hard time proving that one.
They said the same thing with Obamacare too. It was the same kind of thing. They were like, are you serious? And they were even, one of the justices was even trying to say, but if you were to say this, I could understand your argument. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or is like, no, I'm not saying that.
I'm saying this.
Really? You're not making any sense.
That's not working.
Yeah.
To your favor here, it's going to be interesting. Others will encounter pressure or harassment from their colleagues, and such suffering comes because of living godly in Christ Jesus. Okay. Now, some suffering is not the result of holy living, however, but basically our ignorance or wrongdoing, which would qualify as a fault, okay, which is described in 1 Peter. Now in verse 13, the situation will not improve. Evil people will grow worse and will continue to deceive one another and be deceived. We see that all the time these days, every day. It's hard not to. Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown made the following observation about such people. He who has once begun to deceive others is the less easily able to recover himself from error, and the more easily embraces, in turn, the errors of others. Seducers comes from goes, a charlatan or an impostor. Often translated conjurer. Okay, the magical arts were in prominence in Ephesus and were often used to keep the masses in sway through fear, in much the same way that voodoo is used in many parts of the world today. Sorcery and lying wonders will accompany events in the end times. The Christian must beware lest he himself is deceived by such wonders. For this reason, the gift of discerning of spirits is vital to the church today. Paul made use of it on various occasions. We also see, and I'm going to use this as a point too because it's a very prevalent one today. I think the movie Noah opened up today. Okay. On top of it just not even being scriptural, and on top of it not condemning man's sin as to why God destroyed the earth by water, and it saved only 8 people through righteousness. Okay, on top of all that, we also now have basically Russell Crowe calling people basically stupid for making an issue out of the movie, is what he's saying. Like, you're an idiot for even having any controversy about this movie. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Russell Crowe, you're an idiot. Because
I think he said that because a lot of people were saying stuff before having seen the movie.
But they don't mention...
According to the interview that I saw and
So,
I read, he was like, people are making assumptions about something they've not seen before, which this being a biblically based, and I use that term loosely, movie,
yeah.
people are automatically going to go against it no matter what. And his point of view was everybody's bashing something that they haven't seen.
Well, here's the problem. When you see a clip of the movie that Russell Crowe is basically giving a description of the creation of the world, how it started, okay? He's reading out of Genesis, mind you, correctly, properly. But when he's reading in the background and the movie's showing an amoeba and how it's split into 2, and then now becomes into this amoeba-like creature in the ocean. Then it grows into the form of a fish. And then the fish suddenly grows legs. And then the legs of the fish enable it to crawl out on land. And then eventually the same thing eventually morphs into an animal of some kind. And then again morphs into a monkey. Well, I'm sorry, that looks like evolution.
Right.
How do you get that from creation? That's not what creation said in Genesis.
I
That's what they're pushing.
I heard that he didn't even mention God in the movie.
When you make Methuselah out to be a wizard
Oh, is that what they're doing?
and practice black magic, black arts, I got a problem with that. And you're having Methuselah place his hand, played by Anthony Hopkins no less, on Seth's wife's stomach to heal her childbirth problems. Where is that in the Bible?
Right.
Okay, we got issues. Yeah, I got issues with the movie. I don't have to see it to know it. I see clips, that's good enough.
Speaking of clips, how come in every movie Russell Crowe only whispers his part? You got everyone else yelling around him, and he talks so softly. Why?
Method acting. He's a character form.
He's like, the rain is coming. What? Forgive me for yelling. I'm excited. Really?
But yeah, when you have stuff like that, I don't plan on seeing it, sorry.
Yeah.
I got better things to do with my money.
They do.
Waste on that garbage like that. Than to actually support them trying to propagate evolution, black wizard magic as on Methuselah, and taking God out and global
They
warming is
expecting
the
someone
flood.
to play Odin, though.
And they introduced the Nephilim in the movie, fallen angels, but they covered them with rocks, so it looks kind of like Lord of the Rings.
Fallen angels?
Yes, you know the fallen angels. That,
Yeah.
yeah. They called them